Hello, my name is Yvette and this is Carolyn.
Hi everyone.
Welcome to our Onkaparinga Library webinar. We are celebrating Science Week and we are celebrating our marine environments. And we're going to start off today with a story. Here I have a book called Who Sank the Boat by Pamela Allen, and it's published by Puffin Books. So, beside the sea on Mr. Pepper's place, there lived a cow, a donkey, a sheep, a pig, and a tiny little mouse. They were good friends, and one warm sunny morning, for no particular reason, they decided to go for a row in the bay. Do you know who sank the boat? Was it the cow who almost fell in when she tilted the boat and made such a din? There goes the cow in the boat. No, it wasn't the cow who almost fell in. Do you know who sank the boat? Was it the donkey who balanced her weight, who yelled, "I'll get in at the bow before it's too late"? The donkey getting into the boat. Oh no. I think it's starting to get a bit heavy. No, it wasn't the donkey who balanced her weight. Do you know who sank the boat? Was it the pig, as fat as butter, who stepped in at the side and caused a great flutter? Oh my goodness. I think the boat is almost about to sink. No, it wasn't the pig as fat as butter. Do you know who sank the boat? Was it the sheep who knew where to sit to level the boat so that she could knit? Oh, that's a clever sheep. She can knit.
And she can make the boat float too. There we go.
Oh, they're all in. No, it wasn't the sheep who knew where to sit. Do you know who sank the boat? Do you know?
I think I do.
Was it the little mouse, the last to get in, who was lightest of all? Could it be him? Oh no, the boat sank. You do know who sank the boat. It was the tiny little mouse.
We better get them out of the water, hey?
Oh yes, let's go back to land and dry off.
Okay, so think about the story as we explore how to build boats and why boats float or sink.
Have you ever thought about why a boat floats? So in your activities packs at home, you should have a piece of coloured paper. And we are going to make a little boat like this out of the paper. You've also got your instruction sheets at home, so you can follow this and you can follow me at the same time. Okay, let's start. We're going to fold the paper in half, just like this. And then we're going to open it up and fold it in half the other way, just like this. Okay, and now we are going to fold the sides in. So we've got one side folded in, and then we're going to fold the other side in. And push the sides down hard, so you've got a shape like this. Now we are going to fold the flaps. This flap goes this way, and then turn it over and fold the flaps up the other way. So now we have, it looks like a hat, shape of a hat. The next step we're going to do is we're going to fold these little flaps in like that. And then this side, we'll fold the flaps over the top, just like that. So we've got a triangle. Okay, the next step we're going to do is we're going to pull these apart and fold it so it looks like a diamond. And now we're going to fold this side upwards. Got the instructions at home if you're getting a little bit lost.
You had to practice a lot, didn't you?
I did have to practice a lot. Now I'm going to fold the other side up. So we've got a little triangle again. And now we're going to pull the sides out one more time and fold it this way. And now we can pull the sides down and we have ourselves a little boat. Look at that. Now you can crease the sides up a bit so that we don't get water in the boat. When we put it in the water, you don't want water getting into the boat. There we are, we have a little boat. Now let's see, do you think this is going to float or sink?
I think it might float.
Let's have a look.
Yay!
It floats.
Well done. Well done. Okay, so we're going to look more about why boats might float or sink. And there's three things that determine whether a boat floats or sink, and they are the materials that we use, the weight of a boat, and also the shape of a boat. Okay, so let's look at materials first.
Does the material matter?
Well, I think it does. What do you think of that?
I think it does too.
Because this one is made of
Paper, and it's very light.
very light. It's sitting on the water really nicely, isn't it?
It is.
So maybe a light material helps a boat float.
I think it does.
All right. Okay, so let's have a look. What about a spoon?
Do we think a spoon is going to sink or float?
Well, it's quite heavy.
It is.
And it's got, I don't know, let's have a look.
I think it's going to sink. There you go. A spoon sinks.
Sinks, yes, because it's made of metal and it's heavy, I suppose.
So it's
all right, materials. Okay, how about a cork?
I think a cork is going to float because it's quite light in material.
It's very light. It feels very light.
So it can sit on
So
top
it's a
of
bit
the
like
water.
paper. It feels a bit like paper, the weight of it. So let's have a look. All right.
There you
It's
go.
bobbing along very nicely.
A cork can float.
So we could make a boat out of a cork.
We could.
All right, what else have we got here? We've got a coin.
Wonder if that's going to float or sink. What do you think at home?
Well, it's nice and flat. I think it might float.
It could be a little bit heavy though.
It could look like a boat.
Yeah,
Let's
give
try.
it a try. It sinks just like the spoon.
Yes, a bit too heavy, isn't it? All right, what else have we got? A wooden stick.
Lollipop stick.
Nice and flat.
Now I wonder if that's going to sink or float.
What do you think of that?
I'm thinking it will float.
Let's have a go.
There we are.
Beautiful.
Isn't it amazing how some things float and some things sink?
And if we join all those up together, I think we could make a raft, which would float really well on the water. Okay, what about this one?
So, oh, that's a tough one.
Very tough, because look, it's got little holes in it. So what's
It
going to happen there?
has. I think it's going to float, but maybe once the water gets inside those holes, it will make it heavier.
And, well, it's certainly going to get waterlogged, isn't it? There's going to be water's going to fill up with all those holes. Let's have a go. Oh, look, it's floating.
It is.
Oh, oh, oh.
But once the water gets in, I think it might end up sinking. How interesting. So does the weight of the boat matter, Carolyn? What do you think?
Yeah, well, this is a very difficult one, the weight, because I always think, well, how come a boat is bigger than a house and it can float on the ocean? So have you ever thought about that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, well, that's to do with something called density. And you can either have materials that have got a high density or materials that are low density, and that's to do with the weight. So let's, oh, I've got to squeeze up my sponge. That's probably made the word water all murky now. Okay, so let's get back to our spoon. So a spoon is something that has a high density, because we talked about how heavy it was when it sunk to the bottom. So the particles inside that make up the spoon are really packed together really tightly. So that makes it an object that's got high density, therefore it's heavy, and therefore it's going to sink. And I think you said that the parts of it are, you know, really tightly packed
There's
up.
lots of parts in it, which makes it dense,
Yes,
which makes it heavy.
Whereas we've got the cork, which is light, it has less density. So it has the particles inside the cork are all loose and floating around. There's a lot more space. So that makes this object have less density and less weight. So therefore it can float.
So the water can hold it up.
Yeah. And so the boat actually has got less density than the ocean. And that's one reason why boats can float. So
very interesting, isn't it?
Yes, we're learning lots, aren't we?
We are.
So we've talked about materials that you need to build a boat, but also about the weight of your material that will enable something to float or sink.
So Carolyn, do you think the shape of the boat matters?
Well, look at our story. We had our boat, which did float beautifully on the water.
And our paper boat floated too.
And so what's sort of common about these two? What's sort of the things that are alike?
It's the shape, and it doesn't let water in.
And it's the point too, isn't it?
Yes. So I have made a few other little boats that you could make at home if you can find some materials. In your pack, actually, you should have some receipt rolls like this. And I've just put some rubber bands around them to keep them together and made a little flag. So let's have a look about this shape and see whether it will float. It is floating, it's like a raft. However,
it's nice and flat. I think that's why the shape of it, that's why it's floating.
And because it's got lots of air in there, it's not very dense. But I think that once water gets inside these little holes, it will make it more dense, which means it will start to sink.
I think it's probably a little bit like the sponge, isn't it? With
yes,
the holes.
Yes.
But eventually, over time, I think they're both going to sink.
So it's like a boat that has a hole in it and water gets inside, it's going to sink, isn't it?
There was a famous boat called the Titanic. That's what happened to the Titanic.
Yes. And I've also made another little boat out of aluminium foil. You'll probably have some at home. You can ask your mum. And I've made a little boat out of that. And it's very flat. It's got no way where water can get in. So it's the shape, the material, and the density. Let's see if it will float. Look at that. So you can make some different kind of boats at home and try them out in the bath tonight.
Yes.
It's floating.
All right. So in your activity pack as well, we've got some pipe cleaners, and we've made some. We're celebrating marine environment, so you could make your own pipe cleaner coral, which looks really effective.
That is
doesn't it?
beautiful. Beautiful colours, just like the real corals you find in the sea. So you can make your own at home and make any shape that you would like.
And we've got some other things in the activity pack as well, a word search and the colouring in.
Yes.
So if you haven't received your activity pack, come to one of the Okapringa libraries and we'll be able to give you a pack so that you can go home and build boats. So hopefully you've learnt some things today. We certainly have. So we've learnt that the materials that you use and also the weight of your material and also the shape of the materials you use to build a boat will make it either float or sink.
Excellent. Learnt so much today, Carolyn.
Definitely. All right. Is there any questions out there from anybody?
So, Carolyn, why do you think the Titanic sank? The Titanic was a huge, huge boat.
Yeah, and it was world famous because it was going to be the best boat that was ever built, and in actual fact, it hit an iceberg and did it did sink, didn't it?
Yes,
so I think all those things that we learnt today about the materials, the weight and the shape maybe caused that boat to sink because it had big, what it was made of in the hull, the bottom of the boat, all the water got in and filled it up.
The iceberg, there was holes and so water came into the boat which made it heavy and dense, and that's why it eventually sank.
And it was the biggest boat ever built at that time. So, yes.
Okay,
Right.
do you have any questions?
What happens if you put the pop stick in the water on its edge? Oh, that's
a good question.
Will it float or sink?
Let's try it.
Okay, let's take our little aluminium boat out. Do you want to do the honours of it?
So you want us to put it in this
on
way,
the edge,
where it's not as flat.
Oh. Let me try. Oh, yes. So that's because it's probably denser on this side.
Yes.
So it's going to flip over and still float.
There you go. Good question.
Hopefully we've answered your question.
You can try it at home in your bath tonight. See what floats.
And think of other things that you might be able to try in that will float or sink.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? Can you read that? There we go. What happens if you make a boat out of cardboard?
Good question.
So this paper was quite thick paper. It's almost like cardboard. So I think the answer is right here.
What about if we made a boat out of a cardboard box? Because the shape would come into that, wouldn't it? I think. Yeah.
The shape.
Definitely a box shape.
The material.
I think it would float.
And the weight. I think it will float because it has less density in it.
However, we did say about cardboard, things getting waterlogged, like this one, once it gets a lot of water in it will sink. So maybe cardboard over time, I think perhaps would sink. Okay, will it sink?
I don't think my boat's going to sink.
I don't think that one is. I think this one will though.
That one's getting waterlogged.
Shall we put it in? While we're talking, it might sink.
So there you go. There's so many questions.
There is, isn't there? We've become experts, haven't we, Yvette?
Yes.
But I think we might need to read perhaps a little bit more. So if you want to find more about science and boat building and the ocean, come to your local library and borrow some books, watch some videos and learn about what makes a boat float or sink. So we've got lots of resources here at the library.
Okay, well, we hope you have enjoyed celebrating Science Week with us and discovering about why boats float.
Okay, so after this session, you'll also be sent an email with a survey link just to see how we're going. This is our very first webinar, isn't it, Yvette? So, to tell you the truth, we're a little bit nervous, but hopefully it's gone well. So we would love your feedback so that we can improve on our services. So we hope you enjoyed.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
so from about night, it's goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.